So, like I said, here's our budget, and we're going to have Ann kind of lead the way on this tonight. The next slide here is talking about the $50,000. So, ArtOps is giving away $50,000 to the community, and the first thing we want to let people know is no, you cannot apply for the entire amount. You cannot apply for $49,999 either. The point of the grant is to do as much as we can with what we have, which I think is kind of a theme for Highland Park as well as ArtOps itself. We definitely are a collaborative organization. And so we just want to put that out there. And we want to let you know that if we do get any grants that, people are asking for 50,000 or something like that, then, no, we're going to dismiss that. But what makes you eligible for this grant is that you have to request at least $250. You do also, which I didn't include, you do have to be over the age of 18. The project has to take place in and or directly impact Highland Park. So that's going to be a little tricky now because right now, we have a few limitations and restrictions about going outside. So, we're going to use this as a way to kind of push ourselves creatively, right? But it has to involve the arts and engage the community in arts and culture. And that includes the creation of a specific artistic product or program. You do have to secure a match for this grant. So whatever amount that you ask for, your match needs to be at least 25%. And that is for new applicants or people who have previously applied and did not receive funding. So you would be technically considered a new applicant. If you've received funding before, once before during the two previous grant cycles, you're available, your match, sorry, I'm saying 5 things at once. Your match will be 50%, and that's cash or in kind, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, and I'm sure Ann will as well. And then if you've applied in the past and you've received funding twice, then your match will have to be 75%. Also, the dates of the grant, which work out, for us right now, because we probably won't go outside until June, but the grant has to take place between June and December. So you roughly have about 6 months to, kind of execute whatever your project or produce whatever product that you want to come up with. And actually, I'll leave the in-kind stuff. And did you want to jump in and just explain the difference between cash and in-kind?
Sure. So with cash, that's money that you literally have to spend and going towards your expenses of your project. And when it comes to in-kind, that could be the donation or the equivalent value of services or materials or supplies that someone gives to you, or a service that someone may provide. So for instance, if you have a board member that is a former attorney that you may need their advice on for some reason, and they devote some hours and time to your project, but they won't charge you to pay them, that could be considered an in-kind service.
So, and you coming out the gate, you got attorney fees waived.
That's a very generous attorney.
I wasn't ready.
I was trying to think of something off quickly.
I wasn't ready. So let's just jump right into the budget. So Ann, roughly, just a brief overview. Let's see if that's on my next page here. Yeah, this is Ann. And Ann roughly is the director of our institutional giving. Ann handles budgets all day long. That's kind of like part of her, almost, what is it, like your bread and butter, basically, to put together budgets with grants that she's, applying for on behalf of ArtOps clients. And part of the Community Heart Grant, we are supported by the Erb Family Foundation, and part of their support includes the professional development support that all of our team members provide. So if you're an applicant and or a resident of Highland Park, and you have some general questions about, applying for a grant, or, you wrote something and you need somebody to just kind of take a quick once over at it, and would be a great resource for you to reach out to, as well as myself. But just to put that out there. And then let's go back one more. So we're gonna go to this budget, and we're gonna let Ann kind of take over from there. So if I set this up right, hey, it should work. So
Thank you.
can you see it okay? You want me to make it bigger, or it's good?
I think it looks good. Thank you so much, Janelle. Thank you for putting this into the presentation tonight. So one of the goals for this evening is just to sort of walk through a mock project budget that we put together. We realized we had some constructive feedback from applicants and grantees last year about this form, and that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, which we understand. We tried hard to make sure that we can streamline this budget process as much as possible. So we thought we would just walk through this form with you and go through a little demonstration of what it could look like at the end of the day before you submit your application. And we also listed some questions to be thinking about, not only while you're filling out this form, but questions to think about before, when you're completed with it and you want to actually submit the application. So it's not kind of a thought process as if Janelle or myself were completing this on our own as applicants. So if that's good, if you can go up to the notes at the bottom, Janelle. Yeah, right there. Little couple up.
Sorry, I'm terrible.
That's okay. There we go. Okay, so no worries. So I've sort of set up a scenario as myself, and roughly I'm a new applicant, and I'm applying as a collective, a wind quintet. I'm part of a wind quintet, and I would love our ensemble to apply to receive funds to do an educational project that we're really passionate about. So as a new applicant, I know that I have to make a $25% match. And based on the budget that I put together, I want to request $4,000. So I did the math of 25% of $4,000 is $1,000. So I know going into this form that I need to show at least $1,000 of matching funds, whether that's cash or in kind. So cash meaning someone gives me another grant, gives our collective another grant with a value of at least $1,000, or in kind like services or space rental, which we will see a little bit later on in the form. So as I mentioned, I'm applying as a collective / wind quintet. I also know that I will play a creative role, so I will actually be part of the artistic product, but I also play an administrative role. So I want to make sure that I'm including my time both as an artist, but also as the project director, because I know that, if someone were to hire me, not only as an artist, but to do the project, there's validity in being paid for both of those roles, because they're both very important and they can be unique. So what my project is I'm proposing to do an in-school program that ties live classical music to language arts and storytelling. This is something that my quintet has loved to do, and we're good at it, and we'd love to bring this program to Highland Park. One example could be at George Washington Carver Academy. So I know that I want to do the program 3 times, and I want to work at George Washington Carver Academy. It'd be great to do all of the sessions, or the shows, if you will, back to back in the same day, because I know based on my past experience in the program as an artist that would ultimately help save me money, and save the school any money and save time. I also want to serve the entire school population and not create any cost to the schools, so to make sure it's as accessible as possible to all of the children. I know that each show or assembly in the project is 1 hour long, and there are 5 total artists. So there's the narrator, which is going to be myself, and then there's the 4 musicians. sorry, can you scroll down? I think there was one last thing on there. Oh, okay. And then I want my project to occur in September of 2020. So it would be great to kind of kick off the school year at George Washington Carver Academy with doing these assemblies in September. Okay, so if we look at the expenses, this is an area where I usually start first. And this is something that our colleague and boss, Maury Oken at ArtOps has taught us, and based on the way that he works. So he likes to start with the expenses first, and I do as well. It makes sense because it can make it easier to lay out your revenue stream when you really know how much things are going to cost, because you can adjust the revenues later. You can't necessarily adjust your costs. So in thinking this through, I wanted to lay out everything that could possibly have an in-kind cost or a cash cost. And that's me. So my thought process is thinking through sort of answering those who and what questions, the when questions, the where questions, even how many questions. So you'll recall in the application form and in the narrative, we ask you to answer those questions in the product description. I think it's helpful to also think of it that way when you're doing the budget. So if a panelist or reviewer is looking at your budget, could they understand what you're asking for and how you came up with the expenses that you did? So that's one of the first questions that I ask myself when I'm doing this budget. So if we start from line 42, I know that in some level, the school administrators, leadership, like the principal, has to be involved in some way or another, because I'm going to have to communicate with them about this project. They're going to have to help me set up dates and times, and then maybe any follow through or follow up or evaluation measures. So I've estimated that there's going to be about 15 hours worth of time, and then that would be estimated average of $50 per hour. So that comes up to $750, and that's in kind, because again, they're part of the project. The administrators wouldn't be paid separately to do this. It's almost in a way, it's sort of like built into their job description, if you will, as administrators. Similarly for line 43, it's school teacher time. So all of those teachers have to bring the kids to the gymnasium or the auditorium to participate in these shows. So I've put them in at about 2 hours of their equivalent time of work for that. That comes out to $1,000. And then we have the actual artist. So as I mentioned before, we have 4 musicians that are going to be involved. And I have calculated out how much I want to pay each of them. And a lot of that, again, is based on my experience. So for everyone that's applying, you will have your own sort of pivot point to figure out how much you want to pay your artists. I recommend that you don't underestimate how much you pay them. It's a good question to sort of ask yourself, am I paying them too much? Am I paying them too little? But I would say go with your gut, go with your experiences. You know best what the artists deserve to make. And so don't underestimate that. But I've put that in the cash column here for line 44. So I know that I need the artist to perform. And for the actual performance of these 3 shows, that'll be, each show is an hour each, right? As I said, so that's, let's say 3 total hours. So the costs for them come out to $2,400. And then the line below that, I put in the narrator, and that's me, because I want to make sure as an artist that I'm getting paid for my time and my work. So that comes out to $600 as the narrator. And that's the same rate of $200 that I put in for the musicians. Artist fees for myself as the narrator for rehearsal. That's line 46 and 47. Before we actually perform the show in front of the kids, I want to make sure that we're all on top of understanding who's playing which part, and we have a good flow together, because we haven't actually performed this show in quite a while, so we needed a refresher. So I put in, again, the number of artists at the amount I want to pay them, and I estimate that our rehearsal will take no more than 1 hour. But again, that artist time is really important, so I want to make sure that they're getting paid for that time, and myself as well. Music's a big part of this project, obviously, and the score and the book. We pick a book, and then that's what we play out. We literally enact and play out that book coming to life. So there's scores and there's parts to that, which I have to make sure I keep in mind any copying costs to literally get the parts to the musicians physically and or pay for any royalties. So that I put in $250 for that. Workbooks for teachers, pre and post activities. So that comes down to activities that I think the teachers can do with the kids to sustain my program once our artists leave the building, leave the school. We want to make sure that the kids still feel engaged in what they learned from us. So I put in $100 for that, and I have chosen to donate copies of those in kind, because I feel more comfortable giving that to the students and the teachers to have. And it's a low enough cost where I'm okay sort of paying that out of pocket, as it were. Marketing, posters and flyers. So even though this event isn't necessarily geared towards the public, I still want to make some marketing collateral that could appeal to the kids and get them excited. So I want to make a poster and I want to make some flyers. And at the end of the day, with printing costs, that's going to cost $200. Space rental. So, and I apologize, this should actually say 3 shows instead of 2 shows. So that's something I would fix, going back. So space rental, obviously I need a place to do this, but I have a good relationship with George Washington Carver. So I know that they won't expect to get paid to host these shows. They're just so excited to do the shows that, and they've seen our group before and they really want to make this happen for the kids. So space rental I put as in kind, and that amount refers to how much it would normally cost if someone else or a third party had to pay for actually using the school space. But again, because I have a good relationship with the school, I'm able to put that in kind, and they're willing to document that on paper for me. Should I get the funds in a final report to say we donated $500 worth of space rental to Anne and her wind quintet. Okay, and then we've got project director admin time. So again, as I mentioned earlier, it's just as important to list your time as an administrator as it is to list your time as an artist. So I've done that in here because I will have communication that I have to do with the artists, with the school, with the teachers. I have to coordinate dates. And I also, for me, I want to make a survey for the teachers so I can learn from them about what they liked or maybe didn't like about my project. And then I'm just spending time collecting any feedback and maybe analyzing it with my fellow musicians and thinking about it. So really, the project director admin, that's just time. So, and I've estimated that I'm going to spend about 20 hours doing that. And if someone externally were paying me, I would charge $40 an hour. So that comes out to $800. And I want to make sure that's covered in the cash column and not the in-kind column. Because again, my time is important. And it adds some validity to your project.
And I have a quick question because I
Yeah.
don't know, I just feel like I got this revelation while you're talking. But when you're saying cash, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not like people have to have cash. This could be like this is anything that's not in kind, basically, but we're just calling it cash. But it doesn't mean that it's in this type of currency, right? Like it could be.
Yeah, it's not, so it's basically, it's stuff that has to be paid for in the grant.
That couldn't be just like given to me at a value, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Given to you at a value that you don't have to actually pay for is the in-kind part.
Okay.
The cash is, that's ultimately what needs to be paid for in some form or another by this project.
Okay.
So I've got to pay the artist. I want to make sure that I'm covered for my time. And again, a part of that in terms of paying yourself is the sustainability piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's also how you can make a case to other funders or to other donors to say, there is a cost to this and that I'm willing to be flexible. However, I don't want to undervalue myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it comes out to total expenses of $5,000. You can see the automatic calculation there in line 57. And then there's the automatic calculation in column D, 2550. Grand total $7,550. So that's the total cost of my project. So I've done my expenses, and now I want to go back up to the top to revenue and do that section now. So in my matching funds, and I want to make sure that any in-kind expenses, I also list in my in-kind revenue, because you want your in-kind revenue and your in-kind expense to match exactly. So you can see that basically what I did was I took all the numbers in the expense section and put them all up in the matching funds section. And already I've made my match. Because again, 25% of $4,000 is $1,000. And already in school teacher time alone, I've made that match. I mean, so, and yes, I happen to go over on my in-kind match, but that's fine. As long as I've shown the minimum percentage match that I have to make, I should be good to go. However, I also know in my other funding sources that I already have a committed sponsorship of $1,000. So as a collective, our group received $1,000 to support this program because they're really interested in the arts, in arts education, and they also like the intersection of music that ties directly to the curriculum. So we were able to secure $1,000 from this corporate sponsor, which is great. So in figuring out my grant request amount, this number in part came from when I was calculating my expenses. But I also was thinking about, what do I really want these funds to go towards? Do I want them to really help more pay me? Is it supplies? Is it marketing? But I decided on the whole, I would love these funds to essentially go to the creation of the art. So if we went down to expenses, we can see that lines 44 to 47, those should come out to $4,000. Is that correct? I'm doing the math really quickly. Let's hope so. That's, yeah.
All right, what's the numbers, and I can put them in.
Can you move your calculator over just
Yeah.
so I can see?
It's so big. Hold on one second. I can't even figure out how to move it over. No, I can't move it over. I'm going to trust your math.
Hold on, I can do it. I double checked it today, but you never know. It's always good to triple check everything. Okay, yep, so lines 44 through 48, excuse me, that comes out to $4,000. And ultimately, I would love this grant to support those artists because I want the artists to get paid. And without the artists, the project can't happen. So that's how I've kind of justified that $4,000 worth. So if we go back, okay, so again, so total cash comes out to $5,000 on line 40. We've got in-kind $2,550, total project $7,550. And the budget balances. So the total revenue matches the total expenses. So that's great. If we go down, so questions I ask myself when filling this out, and I'll sort of walk through them quickly here. But these are the questions that I myself was asking when I was doing this. And sometimes, and it helps me to sort of have a checklist. So whatever works for all of you to be adaptable in questions that you want to make sure you're asking. I mean, feel free to use these as a marker, but there may be other things too, because everyone's project is going to be unique. So some of the questions I was asking first was, how much match do I have to make, right? And that's determined by whether I was a new applicant, a returning applicant times 1, or a returning applicant times 2, and I had received funding both of the past years. Question 2, are my expenses listed out or covered in answering the who, what, where questions? Who is involved at every level of the project, where it takes place, and what will happen? So this is what I was saying before. In the narrative, we ask you for that project description. to describe the who, what, when, where. Similarly, in the budget, I wanted to make sure that whatever I was saying in my narrative could match what was going to be going on in this budget.
Hey, Ann, can I jump in really quick? I just
Yeah.
wanted to talk about why the match is different levels for different people. Um,
Mm.
and the reason why we, included that rather than just, keeping it at 25% is because we want to encourage people to utilize and take advantage of the professional development opportunities. So ArtOps provides a lot of management services for arts-based nonprofits. And that means that we provide, development assistance, like she said, marketing, grant writing, and we want to encourage applicants to take advantage of this so they can build up their capacities, learn about how to get access to different types of grants, and feel confident when applying for those. And we don't want people to get dependent on one particular revenue stream that is temporal. So the grant that we have working with the Erb Family Foundation is extremely generous, but it does have an end date. And we have 2 more cycles of this grant, that's $50,000, this year, 2020, and we hope, God bless, 2021. So because of that, we want to, kind of challenge and encourage participants to, look at other places to get funding and find ways to build up their capacity. Previous applicants have gone on to become Night Arts Challenge finalists, as well as some have become, work with Kresge. There's other grants such as MCACA. There's a lot of things out there, and we will want to support you and, kind of diversifying your income pool. So just wanted to throw that in there, and I will be quiet and let Ann finish up.
No, great. Thank you for reiterating that. Because also, we want these projects to go out into the greater world as well. We want more funders and supporters and potential donors to see all of the great things that are already happening in Highland Park. And that's part of building the family piece with the different match levels. Okay, question 3. Another question I'm asking myself is, are my artist fees fair? So again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that go with your instinct, go with your experience in your history of success and things that you've learned about artist compensation. 4, do I have my own time as an artist and administrator project director in there? And in this case, I do, but that's a good question to ask yourself. Question 5, how do I want to evaluate this project, and would there be any costs? So again, evaluation is not required in these grants. It's certainly encouraged if it's within the scope of your project. Evaluation is an incredibly useful tool to learn about not only who you currently serve, but who you want to serve in the future. Most funders actually do require some sort of evaluation, whether that's surveys, asking people questions to fill out, going out and talking to people. Evaluation can even be, taking photos or video, getting testimonials. But for my particular project with my wind quintet, evaluation is important because I want to hear from the teachers how I can make my program and my show better so that when other kids see it, it can be better each time. Question 6, are there any unanticipated costs that may come up later? And am I ready to scale back my project if I don't get full funding? This is a good question. These are good questions to ask yourself. I would even advise myself, don't worry about that too much. You want to go in confident with your project. But it's also good to be realistic. So if I requested, I'll be requesting $4,000 hypothetically in this grant, but if let's say I got half of that, could I still do this project? It's a good thing to just keep in the back of your mind. Question 7, am I asking for enough? Am I asking for too much? What do I want this grant specifically to cover? So again, I answered that earlier. For this project, for me, I really want to cover the artist fees. It's really important that all the artists get compensated the amount that I would like them to. Question 8, what costs do I actually need to pay for, and what costs can be covered in kind? What relationships do I have to ensure an in-kind cost like the school space rental, and who do I need to talk to? So again, reiterating what we talked about earlier, think about the people in your life, think about your circle and your network of people who would be involved in your project and what relationships you have with them. Are there people like maybe like a printer or a photographer who would be willing to donate their expertise and time or resources to your project? Sort of lay that out even before you start putting them into this template. It might be good to just lay out everything that you think is going to have a cost in this project. And then you can go from there and see what you actually need to pay for, and then things that could be covered in kind. Okay, is my in-kind accounted for in both revenue and expenses? Again, I mentioned that earlier. Make sure that whatever you have in the expense column is also up in the revenue. Yep, so they're there, that's good. Okay, 10, who am I partnering with? Oh, so sorry, kind of similar to question 8. Who am I partnering with in the project? Do I have their costs in there, either cash or in kind? So partners could be other artists, it could be another organization maybe, or a business or a school. So kind of make sure you're covering your bases there. And then question 11, timing. If I'm putting in matching cash funds, are those gifts committed or pending? I want to make sure I let the reviewer know the status of that. So in my budget, I had mentioned that the corporate sponsor is supporting the project at $1,000. That's the gift they've already given us. We haven't yet spent the funds because we knew we were going to spend it for this project. So I've just listed in there on that line to say committed. Again, in your own project budget, if this happens to be something that you don't list, like if you happen to forget to list them as committed or pending, that's not going to make or break it for you in terms of being considered for funding. It's just, you want to paint the picture as clearly as possible for the reviewer, because you're really telling the story as well, as much as you in the budget, as much as you are in your actual narrative. Okay, and then just kind of housekeeping questions I ask myself before I submit this document. Do my total expenses add up correctly? In this case, they do. That's good. Does my total revenue add up correctly? Yes. Do my revenue totals match my expenses, i.e. does the budget balance? Yes. Did I make my match, either in cash or in kind? Yes. Do my line item descriptions make sense? Would a third party understand it? So again, if we were to go up a little bit and look in the expenses here, so I mean, and this might be, for some people, this might be almost like hyper detail. Just make sure you can justify how you're explaining it. You don't need to write full lines, paragraphs, sentences, but also don't just put in necessarily just artist fees. And that if all you had in the line was just artist fees, that could be confusing for a panelist, because it'd be like, well, who's that for? Is that for you? Is that for someone else? How long are they spending on the project? Just sort of keep that in mind. Again, in this case, the more detail, the better, but also don't feel pressure to drive yourself crazy with it. Let's see, for my in-kind costs, will I be able to get documentation later on? So those of you that received grants in the past 2 years, you'll recall in our final reporting process at ArtOps, we do ask for some documentation when you do your budget for your final report. And when we say documentation, that's really, it could be an invoice or a short letter or an email from that provider saying, yes, we gave Patricia $1,000 worth of space rental in our studio. So in this case, for me, in my project, it would be a short letter from the school saying, yes, we were happy to donate the money or the value of the auditorium space rental for these 3 shows. But it will be important to have that documentation. And usually people are pretty open to giving that to you, especially if you draft it for them. All they have to do is sign. In my experience, I've never had any issue with someone wanting to sign that. And then sort of this big question for any budget of any scope. At the end of the day, can I justify every number I put down? Could I defend it? And I think, you know, that's, if there's anything to take away from this from this presentation, I think that's one of the biggest questions to make sure you keep asking yourself. Because, you know, you are the expert in what you do. And yes, obviously there's a process and a protocol for putting your grant together and making your case. But you are the expert in your artistic discipline. And if you can defend that number, then that's great. That's what you need to do. And if there was ever a case for some reason, like if any of our panelists for this year came back and said, oh, could they describe that number a little bit more? And you could stand up in front of them and say, yes, this is how I came to that number. All the better for it. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to justify these numbers.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I know that was a lot. Hopefully it makes a little bit more sense. I'm happy to answer questions here in the feed or anyone that's online. And
Yeah,
we
let's open it
can
up
make
for
this
questions.
form available, this sample available to you all as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Great.
can make it and this is Anne who's been talking. So we can you know, just open it up for questions if anyone has any. I'm gonna just go to the grant so we can all take a look at it. This is the URL, the link. It's really easy to get to if you don't remember this. It's on ArtOps, and you just go to programs when you get there, if you happen to go to our main page, and then you go down to Community Heart Highland Park, hit continue reading, and it just talks about the program itself. It lists, you know, past people whose projects have been funded, excuse me, and we talk about the grant, and you know, oh, this is the flyer. I was like, where's the flyer? But so this is the flyer. If for whatever reason you want to share it out with someone, again, the applications are due on Monday, April 20th at 11:59. I would encourage everyone not to reach out with questions at 11:53. I may not be available. This is how you sign up for our next Ideathon. And I apologize because I think I missed some of the inquiries before about the Ideathon. So some people missed the first one, but it is up on our YouTube page. And so here is where you can find the downloads of the application, or you can use this really cool portal here. And in the portal, you can, you know, just fill it out directly. But we do encourage you to, you know, write out your answers ahead of time, because this does not save, and it's a sick feeling of staying up for 2 hours or whatever and writing all this cool, wonderful stuff down, and then, you know, some glitch happens or whatever, you know, and you lose everything.
And just one tip about that, because Janelle's right, that is just a horrible feeling when you put it in there and it just doesn't, something goes wrong. So one thing you can do is back on the ArtOps website page, depending on, again, if you're applying as an individual or a non-individual, you can just download the application form, because the application form should replicate exactly what's on the portal. So you could fill out this application form and then just copy and paste text into the portal. If you want to do it that way.
Yeah, that's definitely another option. So we don't seem to have any questions right now, but as far as getting in touch with us, we are available during this time. So we're still at work, we're still working. We're grateful to that, grateful to our clients who still, you know, need our services during this time. And so this is my email address, that's Ann's, but we have a general email that you can reach out to us at, and let me pull that up here on the flyer. It's, I'll keep doing that. It's Community Heart Highland Park. And so it actually has live links that'll take you back to the pages we were just looking at. But this is the email here. If you have any questions, anybody that doesn't have my phone number and would like it, you can email me and ask for it. I'm not about to say that on a recording, but you know, you can reach out to me. Our office phone does work, but we're delayed sometimes in getting the voicemails, but we will get them. But I don't want you to have kind of an urgent question and can't get to it. So, but that kind of concludes what we wanted to do tonight. Just going over the budget. Let me look back at this slideshow, make sure I didn't leave anything out. Oh, questions, yeah. And then this, like I said, this is our email address if you have anything. So, but I thank you all so much, and thank you. Is there anything, Ann, I'm leaving out? Oh, wait, I see something. Oh, thanks. From Angela. Yes, thank you, Angela, for being on. So like I said, we're gonna save this and record it. It actually did not go live on Facebook, unfortunately, but it has been recorded. So we're gonna save it and upload it later on tonight to YouTube. But thank you all so much. In the meantime, be safe and have a great night.
Thank you all very much.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.